What shaped you into the person that you are? What type of parenting style did your parents have?
That's a good question. So I'm one of four. Mm-hmm. I'm a middle child, which I've been told explains a lot about me. My dad, he worked in a warehouse and later managed that warehouse. My mom, she was either a stay-at-home mom. This is the 70s, right? She was either a stay-at-home mom or had, had like minor jobs. I think she sold cell phones once, or was a secretary, stuff, as we got older. But
was it like those big cell phone blocks?
Yeah, like those big, bricks, or back when you had a car phone.
That's good commission. That was like probably $3,000 or not at the time. It was like the equivalent of, it was probably $1,000 then.
But, we grew up, we didn't have a lot of money. I don't want to say it was one of those things where it was like, oh, we knew, we didn't know we were poor. Like, believe me, I knew we were poor. Well, one of the differences was that my dad didn't steal. And my dad's an honorable guy. And, he at this warehouse, he used to work for this company that did women's clothing, and they manufactured and sold women's clothing. And so that's why I know, oh, that's a sheath dress. That's a whatever. That's an A-line. I know this stuff. I would go to work with my dad on the weekends, like on Saturdays or on Sundays. I'd go into work with my dad, who would take a look at orders that had come in through the warehouse and stuff. And yeah, it actually got us into some trouble. I don't want to say I was kidnapped by the Mafia, but I went on a ride. Oh, I can tell that story.
Tell it, please.
So,
gosh, it sounds like the most traumatic thing. So you have some serious trauma.
No, not really. It was fun. My dad, so I guess one of the reasons I hate bullies today, but my dad, so he had a lot of trouble at this warehouse because it was run by the Teamsters, and this was in New Jersey. It was in Philadelphia, Nicky Scarfo and the Teamsters Union. And he was a gangster, and if you're in the Teamsters, are all mobbed up back then, right? So, one of the things my dad would do is, it was the first computer system that could, these registers would call home at night and say, hey, we sold this many dresses. And so on Saturdays or Sundays, I would go in with my dad, and he would take a look at all the orders that had come in, and we would get in his little van, and we would drive to different stores and top off their inventory. I mean, I would be there holding 2 dresses, I'm his helper, right? Mm-hmm. Not helping anything. Probably getting in the way.
That's more. Cool of him, though, that he was having you do that.
It was fun. It was special, right? Yeah. And there were times, my dad sometimes, when he was doing work, he'd put me in a box and put me on the conveyor belt. And I look back on it now, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, put me in a box on a conveyor belt that's going up and down the warehouse. To me, it was like a roller coaster
kind of thing. Right? Oh my!
Conveyor belt.
That's you'd get away with that back then.
Yeah. We didn't wear bicycle helmets back then either, right? But my dad, the Teamsters found out that he was doing that, and they wanted to have a meeting with him. My dad was like, hey, you want to go on a truck? I was like, yeah, like a big rig, like an 18-wheeler? Like, yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm 6, 7 years old, something like that. Yeah, I'll go on a big rig, And, I went to work with my dad, and they put me on a truck.
Oh.
And the guy drove me around for an hour. Oh. Got a chance to be on a big rig. And I think it was their way of saying we can reach out and touch you anytime we want.
Oh. Yeah. That was frightening to your dad.
I asked him about it later when I got old enough and I realized what had happened.
Yeah.
I was like, why didn't you fight these guys? He's like, fight? First of all, they'd fire me. They'd just fire me, get another warehouse manager. But the other thing is that it never gets to the point where the mob kills you or your family. One day everyone will just call out sick. One day all the truckers will call out sick, or one day a truck will catch on fire. It never gets to the point where they have to kill you. It's like
intimidation tactics.
Yeah, they just make your life suck so much that you're like, you know what? It's just easier to give in. It's easier to give them 10%. I don't know if you ever heard the term "fell off a truck." Oh, fell off a truck. That's a thing in New Jersey. Really?
No.
All right. So where I grew up, in New Jersey, it fell off a truck. That means the mob stole.
Oh.
The mob stole it. And a lot of times, if you're going to operate in a mob-controlled area, they expect a 10%. So 10% of those dresses, I guess back now we have GPS and stuff like that. I think one of the things my dad got were locks that like would alarm when you opened them, so they could only be opened at the store, like only the store person had the key, but that didn't quite work because you might have multiple stores and then it has to be the same lock for every shipment. And then like if it's the wrong lock on the wrong truck, then they can't open it. And now you just wasted a trip and now the inventory is low. Yeah. But, these drivers, they would steal 10% of the merchandise and kick it back up to the Teamsters boss, and they would kick 10% up to their boss and sell the rest. And where'd you get this? Fell off the truck. Don't worry about it. Fell off the truck.
I got you. Yeah, it's so organized crime.
Yeah, and so that was, but my dad didn't steal, and I think growing up, so a lot of my friends, their dads were second story men, so they're doing carpentry work, they're doing roofing, they're doing electrical, they're doing plumbing, but then they're casing the house. So 2 months later, they come back to the house, they steal jewelry, they steal a gun, they steal whatever. And so I remember once I went to my friend's house and my friend was like, "Hey, look what my dad stole." And he's like showed me this phone, like a push button phone.
Oh dear. So, I mean, that, I'm sure that was a sense of pride for you that you realized that, but when did you realize that, that integrity? Like, when did you start to have a concept of being able to be like, yeah, my dad was a man of dignity?
I remember my dad once found a wallet on the street, and we went to the police department with the wallet. I do remember that. Yeah.
That's interesting that those are like concrete childhood memories.
Yeah, my dad was a good man. He still is a good man.
Yeah.
I guess it was that level, and my dad never stole. And, I'm surrounded by friends who stole, right? And I don't know, I think a lot of it was my dad. A lot, just him always doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And some of that might be, being a Christian and all that might have something to do with it. But there's a lot of bad Christians who do bad stuff. So I don't know if Christianity really has that much to do with it. But, I think you can be an honorable guy no matter what religion you are.
Yeah.
I think my dad certainly was an honorable guy regardless of the fact that Irish Protestant.
Correct. Yeah. Because it's a personality trait versus a label of, self-righteous label. I agree with you about the labels, and your mom, was she meticulous? Where do you get that sort of the acute attention to detail that you have? Or is that something that were you always like that?
I don't know. That might have been from the Army. Cause when you're doing Army stuff, small things matter. You check the small things. Before you go out on patrol, all right, everyone come over here, jump up and down, and you're listening for a piece of equipment that's rattling. Oh, that piece of metal is not taped up. Put a piece of electrical tape on that metal so it doesn't go clink, clink, clink when you're walking. Yeah. Always have a pen, notepad, and a watch. Always whatever. I think a lot of the attention to detail that might come from the military.
Interesting.
I gave myself an extra half hour to get here today. There's no such thing as late. There's no late, right? I said I'd be here at 10:30. I was here at 10:30, and I gave myself an extra, which I needed because $4.95, right? So that probably came from the military of just, you always have to pay attention to detail because that little thing that you forgot to check, I didn't change I didn't check the cherry juice, or I didn't check the trans fluid in the vehicle. Mm-hmm. And now your vehicle broke down. Now you have to get towed. Now we're down 2 vehicles.
Yeah. You're very diligent. You're a diligent,
I try to be, yeah.
That's cool. And you were definitely on time. That's very cool.